Good morning, YouTube. We're getting ready to rock and roll. Sit tight as we get ready to begin.
And here we go.
It's the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is
not merely peace in our time, but peace in all time.
I have no fear whatsoever of anybody or anything.
Did you think no one was watching?
Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
your mission.
To boldly go where no man has gone before.
To reclaim the American dream.
To be given the rights of human beings to be afforded equal rights and equal opportunities.
It's the Benjamin Dixon Show. If you're hearing his voice, you're hearing the voice of reason.
You certainly come to the right place.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's Friday, September 4th, 2015. And I want to thank you for joining us at the Benjamin Dixon Show. And of course, as I always say, I am your host, Benjamin Dixon. Thanks so much for taking your time to be here with us. There's a lot of things that I want to discuss today. Some of them a little more somber than others. I definitely want to deal with the Syrian refugee crisis. I am a victim of the same thing I'm going to be discussing, which is the society, our society, needing and requiring sensationalization or dramatic imagery to capture our attention enough to actually want to do something. And I want to talk about that. I want to talk about the practical problem of the Syrian refugee crisis, what we can do here in the United States, and the things that I don't believe we're going to be willing to do. Quite frankly, there are some solutions, and I just don't think we have the political or moral fortitude to actually get it done. So we'll discuss that a little bit. And I want to discuss Kim Davis in Kentucky, who has been held in contempt of court and is in jail because she refuses to sign marriage certificates for same-sex couples. She has, of course, been heralded as a persecuted Christian and martyr by the religious right and several Republican candidates for president. And I want to discuss the fact she's actually a registered Democrat. So I wonder how that plays into their calculus, but we'll discuss that a little bit. And then also, I want to discuss an article that I got sent by a good friend of mine regarding Black Lives Matter and organizer. This is I want to say it's a widely spread article. It was shared about 27,000 times just on alone. And the article is discussing why they aren't going to vote. And when I say they, I can't say categorically of Black Lives Matter, but the tone and tenor that I hear from Black Lives Matter these days kind of matches up with her sentiment. And I think I have her name here. Let me apply it to her. And well, her name is on one of these pieces of notes that I have her on here. So I'll be sure to credit the article writer. So I want to discuss all those things. And somewhere in here, we're just going to, also some hate mail. I got a couple of little hate notes here and there, but I finally have a few that are worthy enough to actually be shared on air because, you know, I absolutely love hate mail. I do. I don't know why. I just kind of, I don't know. It makes me happy to know that people are so frustrated and irritated by my work that they would take the time to send me a very hateful email that lets me know that I'm striking the exact chord that I need to strike in the hearts of religious conservatives in general, Republicans, and the people that I believe are a huge problem in American progress. So we'll discuss all those things. For those of you who are joining us and you are joining us after the fact, you can skip to the commercial breaks. I'm going to do my very best to keep these sections nice and neat so that you can just skip past commercial breaks and get to the next section. All right, folks. So dealing with the Syrian crisis, it is a very... So let's start here. America has taken a non-intervention position beyond the chemical weapons. We got heavily involved in Syria when we believed, or when we had confirmation that there were chemical weapons being used on the citizens. And so we drew a red line that we ostensibly crossed, but we held our guns, and Syria relinquished their chemical weapons. Now, they had already used some, but they relinquished it, and that kept us from going troops on the ground into Syria. We did execute a no-fly zone at a certain point, but beyond those two factors, we have pretty much taken a non-interventionist role in what's going on in Syria, the Syrian civil war. And the fact of the matter is that it has waged on relentlessly, and has become even more complicated than it originally was. It was the sitting regime versus rebels. And now it's not only the sitting regime versus rebels. There's two different rebel factions, and ISIS has taken a considerable amount of Syrian territory. And so now it's not a matter of simply just going in and helping the rebels. We hesitated on helping the rebels because we did not know exactly who they were. And as we began to find out more about them, the rebel regime looked as though they were going to be just as problematic as the Assad regime. And so we could not arm those rebels immediately. And so now it is just a quagmire. It has become so much more complicated. And for the U.S. to get in here, case in point, in the notes, I put a link there to the U.S., to the White House position on Syria. And if you click through, you can see that has not been updated. Now, maybe it was updated overnight, but as of last night, it had not been updated for quite some time. So it's almost like we in America and in the West, we've just kind of washed our hands of what's happening in Syria. We quote unquote did our part, and we stopped the chemical weapons use, and we implemented a temporary no-fly zone. And now we're taking a position of non-intervention. That being said, all of the tragedies that took place, even last week when they discovered a truck with over 71 bodies badly decomposed, including women and children, that we didn't see a picture of that. I'm sure if we dug, we could have found it, but that wasn't enough to catch the attention of us in the West, of us in America. It did not catch our attention. But on yesterday, a photographer from, and I can't pronounce the name of this. Actually, I don't have it written down. But from the shores of Turkey, I know that much, that on the shores of Turkey, several bodies washed up, and photographs were spread across the world through social media, online, television, everywhere that you turn, you see these images. And you see the images of a small boy, a 3-year-old boy, and he is in his red shirt and his blue pants and his tennis shoes. And the name, and it wasn't just the 3-year-old boy, it was his 5-year-old brother and his mother. The boys' names were Elaine Kurdi and Caleb Kurdi. And they were dead on the beaches, on the shores of Turkey, trying to escape the war in Syria and to seek asylum in Europe. And they did not make it. Their boat capsized, and the father tried to save the sons, and he noticed one at a time. He noticed that the older son was dead, so he had to let the older son go. And then he looked at the younger son, tried to save the younger son, but then the younger son died in his arms, and he had to let him go. And so he looked for his wife, and his wife was already dead. And so he was able to he was the only survivor of that family. We have a tendency in the United States, and I'm questioning whether or not I'm going to play a small clip, and it shows the boy on the beach, and it shows a police officer taking the boy. I don't know if I'm going to share it or not, because it's I think everyone by this point should have seen it. If not, you can find it everywhere. It's rather ubiquitous. It has become a very sad image that is shaking everyone out of their stupor, out of their sleep, because we are asleep in the United States. We are, quite frankly, asleep, because the further away it is from us, and the further away it is from people who we readily identify with, um, the less we see it as a very real, tangible problem. Now, this war has been raging for the last 4 years, since 2011. It is an extension of the Arab Spring that took place in 2010, starting in Tunisia, spread across the Middle East, led to the overthrow of Gaddafi in Libya, and led to the overthrow of Mubarak in Egypt. And so this Arab Spring was successful in a lot of ways. But when it came down to Assad in Syria, Assad was not going to relinquish power, and he was going to use the full extent of his military force to crush the rebellion. And that ultimately led to a civil war. And that civil war has been waging on for the last 4 years. Some 250,000 people are presumed dead, are confirmed dead, and almost 11 million Syrians have been displaced. So there are 11 million refugees spread across the Middle East. Some have gone to Iraq. Some have gone to Jordan. Some have escaped to Turkey. Many are trying to get to the European Union. Germany has taken in quite a bit. Germany has taken in 40% of the refugees that have made it to the European Union. The UK, on the other hand, has taken in 4%. And Hungary has completely rejected over 91% of all of the refugees that have sought asylum in the shores of Hungary. Hungary is faced with a rather right-wing, not faced with, but is controlled by a very strong right-wing nationalistic party, which is refusing to participate. And I will play the clip of the Hungarian Prime Minister, Viktor Orban, and as he talks and blames this situation, or lays the responsibility of the situation at the feet of Germany. All of this to say that without the political will to actually do something about the tragedies that we see, not only in Syria, but across the globe, without the political will to do something, situations like this last for years. And it's not as simple as saying we're going to get involved. Not anymore. At this point, if we get involved, it is a matter of committing troops. It was a matter of committing troops early on, whether or not we were going to go in and help overthrow Assad, or whether or not whatever we were going to do. It was a less complicated proposition when there were only two factions to deal with. Now it's a much more complicated situation because there are 4 factions to deal with, one of which is ISIS. And ISIS controls a great majority of a vast swath of territory in Syria. And so now the solution is going to require troops on the ground to crush not only ISIS, but then decide, I don't know, we still haven't decided where we're going to fall on Syria, and I know so many of us are tired of war. I get that. And a lot of us are quite okay with taking the non-interventionist position, because we have done so much damage throughout the years inside of the Middle East. We are responsible. The United States alone is responsible for so much turbulence in that region. We have overthrown democracies and installed dictators. We've overthrown dictators. And then once we saw that the democracy that took its place was not one that we liked, we helped to overthrow the democracy and put in a new dictator. I mean, we've been doing this in the Middle East all throughout the 20th century. And so the turmoil and the instability in the region is partly due to the amount that the United States has been involved in that region, notwithstanding the fact that we just waged a decades-long war to destabilize the region even more in Iraq. And then we've committed troops in Afghanistan for the same amount of time, almost 15 years now. So all of these factors combined, you look at the fact that Americans have battle fatigue, We still have battle fatigue. No one wants to go to war. No one wants to commit troops to solving a problem that has now become such a humanitarian crisis that we can no longer just turn a blind eye in the United States and act as if there's nothing happening, and act as if so long as it's over there, it's not important to us. And so with that being said, I think I will play this clip. And I give you a warning now. It is very graphic and very heart-wrenching, whether or not you have children or not. But I think if you have children, it is that much more painful to see. So I would give everyone a chance who does not want to see this to click off, and and those of you who are listening, you'll only hear the description, and that might be better for you. So let's listen in.
But few images have captured the enormity of the tragedy sweeping across Europe like this one. A small form, lifeless on the surf, washed ashore after a boat carrying Syrian refugees sank trying to reach Greece from Turkey. The pained but tender vigil of a local policeman before carrying him away.
It is a combination of too much intervention when it wasn't needed and not enough intervention when it is needed. And the reason we're not intervening at this point is because we're just battle fatigued, and we don't have the political will to commit troops to fix anybody else's problems when we quite frankly want to fix our problems. But it's sad, but it's true that images like this are sometimes the turning point and are required. Why is it that so much pain has to be amassed before we're shaken out of our political stupor, out of our political sleep? And then, of course, there's the politicization of it, and I'll discuss Chris Christie and his hungry self, and he wants to blame this on President Obama, when in reality, President Obama, our political leaders are simply a reflection of who we are. Our political leaders, very rarely do you have a political leader, or do we even want a political leader who is going to go against public opinion and do what they think is best. We don't want that type of leadership anymore. It is clear. Clearly, there are some things that President Obama would love to do, but he's confined, he's controlled and contained by the opinion of the political will of the masses. And so why some Republicans want to blame what we just saw on President Obama, the truth of the matter is the blame lies on everyone. American, no matter what your political ideology is, it lays at the feet of Europeans, it lays at the feet of the Middle East, Muslim nations. It is all of our faults. Every single one of us has played a role in this in some form or fashion. And so instead of taking the ridiculously fatuous and disingenuous position of blaming a political party or the president or a political ideology, the reality of it is, are we ready now to do something about this? And do we realize what that something includes? Because we cannot fix the situation in Syria, if it's even our situation to fix. But we cannot fix this humanitarian crisis, which is our moral responsibility as citizens of the world. We must intervene in this humanitarian crisis. Even if we don't fix Syria, we need to do something about all of these refugees who are dying to get away from their war-torn nation. So maybe we don't commit troops to go and push back ISIS and to bring down Assad. Maybe we don't do that because we're just tired of that. But can we not commit troops to help the refugees? Can we not accept more? I know in the United States, every year we only accept about 70,000 refugees, and that's worldwide. That's our commitment worldwide. And there are over 12 million people displaced from Syria. And we have not, and this is from Al Jazeera, the article in the link, Al Jazeera reports that since 1975, we've only accepted 3 million refugees. So this is not something that America can fix, but it's something that America can help out and take the lead on. And so if we're only accepting 70,000 people and we're living in a time of such xenophobia where we don't even want to discuss, we want to talk about putting up a wall and using drones to push back immigrants, illegal immigrants from Mexico, right? So do we even have the political will here in the United States to actually help the refugee crisis coming from Syria when we have a cap of 70,000 per year and the UN has asked every nation to accept at least 100,000 people by the end of 2015, an additional 30,000 by the end of year 2016. The question is, what do we want as a collective body? Are we going to sit back and watch more bodies wash up because they're so far away that we don't feel that pain? And why does it always take something this dramatic and this painful for us to finally say we need to get involved? When in actuality, we should have been involved, maybe not on the ground. I get that. Let's not, we already messed it up. We broke it. We can't fix it. It's so broken, we can't fix it by ourselves. But in this humanitarian crisis and the refugees who are trying to escape, there are some things that we could do and that we could partner with the European Union to continue to try to assuage the amount of pain and death that is felt by this refugee crisis. But I don't think that I don't know that we're there yet. But the question of the hour is, how much more do we have to see and how much more do we have to take? All right, folks, I have more clips, but I'm going to stop it there. When I come back, I'm going to deal with Kim Davis, and she's been held in contempt. And of course, she has then been labeled as a martyr by the Republican conservative religious right. I'm going to deal with that. Then I'm going to deal with some Black Lives Matter, some other news and politics, and hate mail. I've got some hate mail to go over with you. This is the Benjamin Dixon Show, 857-600-0518. We'll be back right after this break.
When you're ready to lose weight, why count, track, and worry over every meal? Jenny Craig makes it simple. Just walk into a neighborhood Jenny Craig center or give us a call. You'll meet your dedicated personal consultant who helps you reach your goals. Together, you'll pick out delicious Jenny Craig foods that you'll love and design a menu that fits your life. And the best part is that you can get started losing weight right away. Don't wait any longer to take advantage of our best offer ever. Call 1-800-JENNY20 or visit jennycraig.com.
This is the sound of salmonella gyrating on your undercooked chicken. And it looks like Mom might be taking it out a little early. Don't let salmonella get funky with your chicken. On average, 1 in 6 Americans will get a foodborne illness this year. So use a thermometer to cook each type of meat to the right temperature. Keep your family safe at foodsafety.gov. Brought to you by the USDA, HHS, and the Ad Council.
On the next episode of Recipes for Disaster.
I'm making beef sliders for my friend Sandy. Nana taught me to always pull meat off the grill early so it's extra juicy.
Use a food thermometer to ensure ground beef is 160 degrees, or you could make people really sick. Sandy didn't think twice about the slider she ate until yoga class, when a nasty case of food poisoning turned her downward-facing dog into upward-moving lunch. Watch Recipes for Disaster at foodsafety.gov and learn the steps Maria unwittingly leaves out. Brought to you by the USDA, HHS, and the Ad Council.
When I grow up, I want to be a new pair of blue jeans.
When I grow up, I want to be a kid's first computer.
Warm fleece on a cold day. I want to be a bike that races around the country.
I want to be a bench on a forest trail.
When I grow up, I don't want to be a piece of garbage. And if you recycle me, I won't be.
Give your garbage another life. Recycle. Learn how at iwanttoberecycled.org. Brought to you by Keep America Beautiful and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Welcome back, folks.
If you're hearing his voice, you're hearing the voice of reason.
Welcome back. All right. So Kim Davis, the Rowan, I heard someone pronounce it as Rowan County Clerk, was summoned before a federal judge on yesterday, and she refused an opportunity to make a deal. And the deal, according to New York Times, and the article is in the links below, the deal was to include not she would not have to sign the marriage licenses of same-sex couples, but rather her deputy clerks would sign the licenses for same-sex couples, and she refused that deal. And so she was held in contempt, as I predicted. She is now in jail. I'm not sure how long her sentence was. Contempt usually is, 3 to 5 days. And so, but this is going to be a recurring process. If she continues to refuse, she's going to be held in contempt again, and she's going to spend more time in jail. And that process is going to continue until somebody yields, or until she no longer holds that position, because by virtue of her not being able to perform her job. And rightfully so. Kudos to the federal judge who made that happen, because she is a public official who makes money from taxpayers. And taxpayers have agreed through their elected officials to certain rules and regulations and legislation. And because she refuses to abide by the rules, regulations, and legislation that has been passed and accepted by the body politic, she is no longer fit for duty. She's no longer fit to do her job. She does not deserve her position. She has abdicated her responsibility as a clerk because of her religious objection. Now, here's the thing. If you sincerely religiously object, that's fine. But you object, and you cannot object and keep your job. You object and go home, take your marbles and go home, right? You pick up your blocks and you go home. She wants to be able to maintain her job and to also discriminate against people who want to get married to the same sex. And it just doesn't work like that. I wish I had the clip of those women from the Geico commercial. It doesn't work like that. None of this works like that. You do not get to discriminate in a public position and keep your job. You don't. And so she's been held in contempt. And what's funny about this, first of all, she is a registered Democrat. Now, I'm mentioning that because I really would like to know who she voted for in the last 2 elections. There's no way in the world that she voted for President Obama, but she could have. I'm mentioning that because the people coming to her rescue at this point are conservative evangelical Christians and the Republican Party. You have several presidential candidates who are speaking out and giving their support to Kim Davis. And of course, the first one is going to be Mike Huckabee. And I have that on the screen. Mike Huckabee tweeted out, Kim Davis in federal custody removes all doubts about the criminalization of Christianity in this country. We must defend religious liberty. Can I read that again so you can hear how absurd it really sounds? I want you to let those words resonate. Kim Davis in federal custody removes all doubts about the criminalization of Christianity in this country. Well, according to his hyperbolic tweet, I should be in prison. Most of my family should be in prison. Most should be in prison. There should not be a church on every single corner in the United States of America. Churches should not have billions of dollars in wealth, combined wealth. Not only churches, but Christians in general should not have billions upon billions. There's so much wealth in the Christian community that if Christianity was criminalized, really, we're not doing bad to be outlaws. The cathedrals that we have on every corner in every city, the bookstores that we have in every city that sell only Christian. You even have christianmingle.com, right? Where if you don't want to be associated with a site that allows same-sex couples to meet, you can go and have your own Christian Mingle where they can discriminate against same-sex couples, right? You're not doing too bad to be an outlaw, Mike Huckabee. So not only that, let's go one step further. You have Christian television. You have multiple Christian television networks that have millions and millions of viewers every single day, billions of dollars in revenues. in contributions because they're running it as a ministry, so they're getting donations and not really having to sell advertisement, right? So they're not doing bad. And then they have the Christian movies. I mean, if Christianity, Mike Huckabee, is outlawed in the United States, we are not doing bad to be some outlaws, which just shows how ridiculously absurd people like Mike Huckabee, Kim Davis, and now even Rand Paul. You would think Rand Paul, the great libertarian hope, would be a little bit different. But I have a clip here of Rand Paul, who's throwing his support behind Kim Davis as well. I want you to watch this clip if I can get this up. And I want you guys on the radio, of course, to listen to this clip from Rand Paul as he discussed on CNN his support for Kim Davis.
Well, you know, I think it's absurd to put someone in jail for exercising their religious liberty. You know, if you want to convince people that same-sex marriage is something that's acceptable, I would say try to persuade people. But, you know, if we're going to use the federal government and we're going to get involved in every state, locality, you know what's going to happen? It's going to harden people's resolve on this issue. There'll be no open-mindedness on this. I think there's a lot of different ways around this that don't lead to conflict, that lead to more time when people can try to persuade others of their opinion on what marriage should be. But I think this is a real mistake. And even those on the other side of the issue, those who want to support a new definition for marriage, I think it sets their movement back because it's seen as that the federal government's going to come in with bully force and here even with police power and incarcerate people who disagree or who still believe in the traditional notion of marriage.
Okay, let me stop it there. That's his first take. I have two clips from Rand Paul. It's funny how Republicans, and I'm going to use Republicans here because they are the ones who are coming to her rescue. I don't see any Democrats. Kim Davis may be a registered Democrat, right? But there are no Democrats, progressives, who are coming to this woman's rescue because she does not need rescuing. She needs to sit her behind in jail. Okay, so it is a conservative evangelical position that this is all about, right? So Republican candidates, Marco Rubio came out in support of it. Rand Paul here is talking about the federal government being a bully, using the police force. It's funny to me how Republicans are all about law and order up until that law and order is being used on them. They're quite okay with the police use of force, overreach in the African-American community, racial profiling. They're okay because that goes underneath the auspices of law and order. They're all about law and order in that regard. But now that law and order is being applied to Kim Davis and her zealotry and her not only zealotry, but her bigotry and hypocrisy. That's the word I'm looking for. When the federal government and law and order is being applied to her hypocrisy, all of a sudden the government is a bully. And the way that Rand Paul is trying to thread the nuance of his libertarian views in this conversation is that he feels like as though this is something that the federal government should not be involved with. And the federal government is coming in and being too abusive. And the federal government is coming in and overreaching in a situation that should only be handled by the state. And then I was reading an article, briefly skimming an article from this right-wing site, and I'll share the clip is in the link, the Conservative Review or something like that, and I'll share a screenshot from it. But I was reading it, and he traces this overreach, particularly by quote unquote overreach, particularly by the Supreme Court back 50 years. Right. And he's saying that we have for the last 50 years been dealing with a court who goes underneath the premises of their rulings having the force of law. And so they're lamenting the fact that the federal government has the ability to get involved with the state level when the state does not want to abide by the Constitution or legislation or court rulings. And it reminded me 50 years ago, like what happened 50 years ago? Not quite 50 years ago. We're about 61 years removed from it. But this harkens right back to the same people who did not want to integrate the school system, the George Wallaces of the world, who felt that the federal government had no right to come and get involved in their state and local business, and that they did not have to acquiesce to the Brown versus the Board of Education 1954 decision. So they've been lamenting this throughout American history, particularly in the 20th century, where they wanted to be able on the state level to run their state without regard to federal law and federal regulation. And matter of fact, it goes all the way back to the abolition of slavery and the 14th Amendment. There's still a large strand of thought in the Republican base and conservatism in general, wherever conservatism finds itself, because Kim Davis is a conservative, but she finds herself in the Democratic Party. It's always about that conservative mindset. It goes all the way back to them not wanting to have to abide by the 14th Amendment. And so Rand Paul represents this position where the federal government needs to not get involved and force the state government to abide by the Constitution, except for when the Constitution is convenient for them. But whenever the Constitution is inconvenient, then the federal government, oh no, the federal government shouldn't get involved. The federal government is a bully. You know, George Wallace standing on the court, standing on the steps of the university in Alabama, saying that the federal government, he's not going to allow them to force him to allow the people to come in and integrate the schools, right? This is the same story, just 60 years later. The same exact story, same exact excuse, the same ideology that wants to be able to control its little fiefdom, its state, without any regard to federal regulations that conflict with their ideology. And they are totally 100% in love with the Constitution when it helps their ideology. In other words, they want America to only serve them, and they do not want America to serve anyone else. That is the bottom line of of many of our conversations with regard to race, with regard to same-sex marriage, with regard to progressivism in general. Progressivism says that we are going to extend the same liberties that we have to everyone else. Conservatism says, well, no, you don't get that. This is, you know, the federal government shouldn't get involved in that. Let the states decide. And these local, these conservative, these backwards mentality people in the states are always going to opt on the side of bigotry, because anything else is going to make them uncomfortable. And you would have to, God forbid, you would actually have to sign a marriage certificate, a secular license, and grant secular rights to people based on legislation, not based on the Bible. God forbid you would have to actually extend rights to people with whom you disagree. That is conservatism 101. And now they have the nerve to actually make this woman a martyr, when in any other situation, if this had been, and I know someone else, I've seen this at least 12 times on social media, so this is not my original thought, but I don't know who to originally credit it to. If this had been a Muslim clerk refusing to sign a marriage certificate to Kim Davis on her fourth marriage because he does not believe, hell, it could have been a Christian clerk who actually believed in the strict definition of the Bible and refused to sign Kim Davis's marriage certificate for the fourth time, then the Republicans would be in an uproar, not over the Christian version, but over the Muslim version. Without a doubt, if a Muslim was a conscientious objector and refused to sign Kim Davis's fourth marriage certificate, the Republican evangelicals would have lost their minds. But so long as it fits their comfort level and their narrative and their goals, well, then, yeah, come on, federal government. You know, so long as it helps them out and helps their cronies out, you know, come on, corporate welfare. Let's just no social welfare. No, come on. You know, here's the same hypocrisy. Socialism is good so long as it's going up, but we don't dare want it to go down. They only want the federal government when it serves its purposes. But then it gets even worse. You have these people, man. These people are something else. Let me share this on the screen with you guys. This is from the Conservative Review, and this is their quote on Kim Davis. Kim Davis, the clerk of Rowan County, Kentucky, is now taking a stand and is refusing to be sent to the back of the bus as a second-class citizen in a country founded upon Judeo-Christian values. So in other words, Kim Davis to them is like Rosa Parks, which is so disingenuous because conservatives at the time of Rosa Parks probably were calling her a whore. Matter of fact, I think I saw an article, and I will find it and post it, where the way they lambasted her and the entire civil rights movement. So for them to even use that twisted logic, which makes no sense whatsoever, because Rosa Parks was fighting against the government discrimination, and Kim Davis is an agent of the government trying to enforce discrimination. So the logic makes absolutely no sense, but it's also disingenuous because you never liked the civil rights movement, you disingenuous, fatuous, simple-minded cretins. You never liked the civil rights movement. And so now you want to play the civil rights card. You always do this with MLK. You want to appropriate the legacy of the civil rights movement because they're all dead and gone, knowing good and damn well that if Rosa Parks or Martin Luther King were alive today, if you hadn't killed King, that you would be calling him a socialist, a communist, a fascist, a Maoist, and a Leninist, even though your dumbasses don't even know what those words mean. So the hypocrisy of these religious Republican conservatives is so absurd that they actually can twist logic that makes absolutely no sense and feed it as propaganda to people who just foam at the mouth because you say religious persecution, or foam at the mouth because of whatever it is for that day. Whatever it is they want to be mad at that day, they will buy into anything so long as it confirms their biases. And this is what we're dealing with. And this is what we're fighting against. And this is what Fox News is all about. This is what Bill O'Reilly is all about. This is what Rush Limbaugh is all about. They are completely about taking America to only benefit them without having to extend any rights or privileges to anyone else that does not conform to the status quo, which Bill O'Reilly said was made up of white Christian
America
men.
is run by white Christian men.
And so long as they are able to keep their masses of people in an uproar over these fake martyrs and these fake urgent these fake calamities, they're always saying there's something under attack, there's a war on Christmas. Matter of fact, these imbeciles believe that Kim Davis is more of a victim of the American system than black people. They even had the nerve, they had the nerve to fix their thinking and their mouths to say and compare this woman to Rosa Parks. And I want to send a message to Christians in America, of which I am one. And so I can call you on your bull because I know your bull and I know how you operate. You want to think in your mind that Christians in America are like Daniel in Babylon or Joseph in Egypt, where they are the persecuted, where they are fighting against the system and they're fighting against oppression and tyranny. But in reality, you are not Daniel, you are Nebuchadnezzar. You are not Joseph, you are Pharaoh. You are the system. You are the oppressor. You are the tyrant. And you cannot be both the tyrant and the oppressed. Kim Davis is trying her best to oppress a minority, and she's claiming that she's oppressed. This is the ass backwards world that we live in. And so long as we don't call people on their bull, they're going to continue getting political power and making America dredge slowly towards progress, when we could have had these questions answered years ago. And unfortunately, people of my ilk, not quite my ilk, because I'm rejected in a lot of Christian circles, and that's quite okay, but people who carry the same name, they don't even deserve, some of these people don't even deserve to be in the same sentence as a Jesus, because they would consider Jesus to be a socialist, communist, Leninist, fascist, Maoist too. Matter of fact, help you to understand, the mindset that killed Jesus is the same mindset that is trying to reject and suppress and oppress people in America. Deal with that, fake Christians. I'm done on this break. Y'all, hey, let me take a break and go get a coffee. I'll be back for the next segment.
You're tuned into the Benjamin Dixon Show. join the conversation. 857-600-0518.
Looking for the right business opportunity? Need the right product, the right marketing plan, and the absolute best training in the world? Well, look no further. The Elite Team. Every leader in time excels. They believe the key ingredients in becoming successful in life and in business are just a keystroke away. Go to www.eliteteamsite.com. That's www.eliteteamsite.com. The Elite Team has a system in place that will move you closer to achieving your goals and dreams. Visit www.eliteteamsite.com or TonyFlemingEnterprises.com today.
College is important, but it can also be expensive. College Planning Services is a group of educators, administrators, counselors, and other licensed professionals that work together to provide the necessary services, networks, and information to reach students that are serious about getting a college education. College Planning Services partners with financial institutions, corporate sponsors, and other major players in the global market to strategize in building a pool of information regarding financial aid, scholarships, and funding information to assist students in preparing to access the essential resources to build upon their path to an educational future. Learn more at collegeplanningtoday.com and let us help you start your college career.
Do you want to take your business to the next level? Ultimate Business Solutions provides the support you need to increase your customer base and sell more products and services online. Specializing in graphic arts, web development, and internet marketing, Ultimate Business Solutions creates the face of your business. If you're looking for a custom logo, dynamic website, or popping marketing material, call Ultimate Business Solutions today at 404-704-2197 or visit www.ultimatebizsolutions.com. Ultimate Business Solutions. Let us create your future.
Do you have tax issues, owe back taxes, or need tax relief? Contact L&B Tax Service today. L&B offers you over 15 years of expertise and first-class tax service for individuals, professionals, and business owners. With nationwide service, you can easily find a location near you. Contact one of our tax professionals through our website, lbtaxservice.com. That's www.lbtaxservice.com. L&B Tax Service Incorporated. Tax professionals that you can trust.
You've tuned in to the Benjamin Dixon Show.
All right. Welcome back. I'm sorry, folks. No, I'm not. Because that hypocrisy bothers me so much, because it's a hypocrisy wrapped in propaganda that is fed to people to keep them voting a particular way that is actually detrimental to their best interest. So it's hypocrisy compounded with propaganda that is ultimately poison to the very people that are out here living this hypocrisy and espousing this propaganda. Do you see that circular cluster F of stupidity that occurs in conservatism? And I used to think that it was because conservatives may have a lesser IQ, but somebody sent me a message maybe a month ago saying that conservatives are just scared and emotional. And I get that. You know, when the world is changing underneath you into something that you're not either prepared for or familiar with, I get being scared. And I understand being emotional, but when you allow your fear and emotion to make you stupid and to make you shoot yourself in the foot, and this is nothing new. This has been taking place throughout American history, because the wealthiest among us always knew that the way they keep white poor people down is by making white poor people hate poor black people. And then when that wasn't enough, it was, let's make these white poor people hate gay people. And when that's not enough, it's, let's make these white poor people hate immigrants. And then who's going to be next? You know, if we start bringing in more people from Syria, then it's going to be, let's make these white poor people hate these people from Syria. They are going to always push the envelope of fear to make sure that they keep their voters who are so fearful and emotional from ever waking up and realizing that they have been voting and sustaining a power structure that has been detrimental to them just as much as it has been detrimental economically to African Americans. It has been far more detrimental in terms of police brutality, systemic racism, and injustices. But economically speaking, it has been detrimental because you can't tell me that the poor people in Appalachia are not experiencing poverty at the same, like going to bed hungry, just like the boys in the hood. You know, hunger is hunger. And there has been a group of Americans who have been fed fear for so long that they would rather eat their hunger than to ever turn and realize that they have been hating and targeting the wrong people all of this time. Which brings me to Black Lives Matter and the economics and the politics and Bernie Sanders and all of this. It is all interconnected. But I was reading an article, and the article is in the link on the radio show as well as on YouTube, PBS article from a young woman, and here he is, Ariel Newton from Black Lives Matter. She's an organizer for Black Lives Matter, and she wrote an article that has like 27,000 shares, which is pretty good. You know, I've got some articles with 100,000 shares, but anyway, that's besides the point. She has like almost 30,000 shares talking about why she's not going to vote or why she may not vote in the 2016 election. And she starts off talking about how she clearly identifies more readily with progressivism than she does conservatism. But in the same sentence, she says that, you know, she feels like there's no candidate who is going to meet the needs of Black Americans enough for her to give them her vote. And then it dawned on me as I was reading that article, and as I was looking at it, I realized, and I dealt with this a little bit on Wednesday, but I want to dig into it a little bit more because it is so important when we're dealing with the choices between, we have three choices in front of us for 2016. And let's just make it really simple. You have the status quo, which an establishment Democrat represents the status quo, which means we're going to stay on this neoliberal trickle-down economic paradigm, and we may shift it by 2 or 3 percentage points on the tax code. That's pretty much it. That's the best you're going to get out of Hillary Clinton. So for all intents and purposes, an establishment Democrat is about the same as an establishment Republican, the status quo. That's your choice. Then you have the choice of the Donald Trumps, the Ted Cruzes, the Marco Rubios, who genuinely represent a hard shift to the right to go further in a more detrimental direction than we can ever imagine. So you have the status quo, you have going further to the right, and then you have one single candidate who actually is having the difficult conversations and has it in his heart to actually undo the status quo and push us back in a direction that is going to help us fix the paradigm that we've been living underneath since 1981. The paradigm that has seen 95% of the wealth that has grown in America go to the top 1% and 5% gone to the 99%. That paradigm must be fixed. And there's only one candidate who's actually talking about that. So you have three choices. And if you choose not to vote, then two of those choices are down. You know, as a progressive, if you choose not to vote, then you are voting for the far right wing conservatives. That's it. It would, I mean, as much as I want to see the 1981 tax cuts and the entire paradigm that we've been living underneath since Ronald Reagan undone, I'll be damned if I don't vote and allow it to get even worse than what it is. And so there's a saying, and I forget who to attribute it to. Some philosopher said that we can't make the perfect the enemy of the good. And so while Black Lives Matter, and I'm using this article, who is really by one person, Ariel Newton, but because of the amount that it was shared and the sentiment that I hear from a lot of people who are affiliated with the Black Lives Matter movement, I'm going to use her as a proxy. This article is looking for the perfect candidate. Black Lives Matter is looking for the perfect candidate. And that's like looking for the perfect mate. You know, that's like looking for the perfect man or the perfect woman. You, first of all, my personal beef, if you're not perfect, how in the blue hell do you expect and think you deserve someone perfect? Because there's no one perfect, right? So if Black Lives Matter is sitting around waiting for a perfect candidate, then what's going to happen is the same thing that happens in the real world when a man waits for the perfect woman, or when a woman waits for a perfect man. They will never find it, and they will find themselves outside in the cold by themselves, single and alone. And Black Lives Matter, to be an organization that actually has goals now and actually has policies that they want to implement, for them to take a step back and say, we're not going to participate in the electoral process, we're not going to vote, any number of them. I don't care if first of all, they don't represent the entire Black community, but that's besides the point. They represent themselves, and they themselves have goals and policies that they want implemented. And if they have decided in their heart that because none of these candidates are perfect, we're not going to vote at all, then they will be like that man waiting on the perfect woman, and will find themselves 10 years from now, single and alone, without any policies implemented, and still complaining about the fact that no policies have been implemented. I said this on Wednesday, and I'll say this again. Politics is like relationships. You are never going to find a candidate that is going to meet all of your needs. You're never going to find a candidate that is going to be the exact perfect match for you. But what you can find is a candidate that you can get in bed with. I don't know if that's a good analogy, but that you can work with, that you can build a relationship with, that you can go have your ups and downs with, that you can fight it out with, that you can have your arguments with, and then you can find some resolution that's actually going to make things better for both of you. The Democratic Party, as screwed up as it is, as little as they have done for the Black community over the last 50 years, as little as they have done to reverse the 1981 Ross-Kemp tax cuts that has screwed the middle class, as much as the Democratic Party is the status quo with regard to neoliberal economics, they are the only political party with enough political organization and structure who is remotely interested in progressivism, remotely, right? Just a little interested enough in progressivism that we actually can change it with the force of the movement of Occupy Wall Street, of Black Lives Matter, and even the Feel the Burn contingency. Those forces have the ability to kick the establishment Democrat Party in the ass and either kick them into gear so that they get in action and actually start doing things to reverse the trickle-down economics and to reverse systemic racism and to actually do what their constituents need done, or we kick them out. So for me, it's like, if your resolution and your solution is to not vote, then you have just made yourself so useless and so easily disregarded that now the rest of us are going to do what any normal person does when they see somebody that they should be with. Here's a person that we should have a relationship with because it just works. It makes sense. We could change the world together. You know, if you and I hook up, we can change the world together. If the Democrats, forget the Democrats, if progressives and Black Lives Matter hook up, they can change the world by changing and crushing the establishment Democratic Party. And I guarantee you, the establishment Democratic Party will do everything in its power. If it cannot co-opt it, which they can't, they will do everything in their power to change, and they will go back into being the progressives that they should have always been, but they got lazy and they got sold out and they got purchased by Wall Street, just like the Republican Party. So here we have this tremendously progressive movement with enough political will and firepower to shut down the Democratic establishment and bring it to its knees so that it can serve its constituents. And we have people saying that they're not going to vote. And so what you're going to see happen when you don't vote, you're going to see the establishment party just kind of disregard you and find somebody else to hook up with and find another way to win and find another way to get political power. And you will find yourself outside in the cold by yourself, no one listening to you because you're irrelevant and you're not going to vote. No one caring about your policies because you didn't help them get elected. So why should they give you anything? Matter of fact, you worked against them getting elected. So you are now a political enemy to the people in power. I understand. Let me finish that last thought, and then I'll close out. You're enemy to those in the political power. And so therefore now you are just out, single, alone, waiting on somebody perfect, waiting on Mr. Right, waiting on Mrs. Perfect, and you will have nothing while the rest of us find somebody who isn't perfect and we build something together. I know every single woman and every single man has been in that type of relationship. So you know exactly what the hell I'm talking about, right? And so now here we go. That's pretty much the end of the story. I forgot where I was going. I'm just, I understand. Here's where I was going. It always comes back to me. I understand having ideological purity and not allowing yourself to be co-opted by a political machine. But what I'm trying to convey to, and I'm going to keep calling out Occupy Wall Street because it's time for you guys to come back on the scene as well. Occupy Wall Street, Black Lives Matter, and the Feel the Burn crowd. And I know Feel the Burn is for one particular candidate, but the ideologies and the beliefs and the firepower underneath it is truly about progressivism and liberalism. I understand ideological purity and not wanting to be sold out and to be co-opted and to be, co-opted. I can leave it there. But at a certain point, you have to realize the political power that you have, and that political power can only be implemented if you operate inside of the political system. There is no value whatsoever to a person who steps outside of the political fray and becomes a perpetual critic, always criticizing the two major parties, but can never get any political power to implement their grandiose ideas. I like reading Noam Chomsky, and I can never pronounce his name right. I love reading him, right? But he is always a perpetual critic who is opposed to the entire American system. But pray tell, how are you going to implement all of your ingenious ideas? Some of them are more ingenious than others, and some of them I don't agree with, but for the most part, he's a brilliant man. How can you ever implement your ideas if you're not going to change the system from within the system, because you're not going to overthrow the system? I can go on for another hour about this, but I won't. Because it's Friday, it's Labor Day weekend. I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to go run. Then I'm going to go to work. Then I'm going to find a happy hour tomorrow because I get off late. And I'm going to enjoy my weekend. And I hope somebody hears this very simple messages that I've said throughout all of this. I want you guys to have a great weekend. I want you to have fun. I want you to be safe over the Labor Day weekend. Oh, good point. Monday, I won't be doing a live show on Monday, but I will be doing a live show on Tuesday and Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of next week. I'm going to see if I can keep up with 5 days a week. So next week, no show on Monday, but I will do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and see if I can survive. If I can survive that week, then we'll keep doing it on a regular basis. I want you to go to thebenjamindixonshow.com and register for our blog, sign up for our blog. I want you to go to facebook.com/The Benjamin Dixon Show. Click on contact us. I didn't get a chance to read my hate mail, so I will make that my Tuesday show. But I want you to send us a message and sign up for our blog. If you like the show, go to patreon.com/The BPD Show and consider becoming a Patreon. If you don't have extra money to spend at the end of each month, like most of us don't, then I want you to just Google Benjamin Dixon and go read all of my articles because they're pretty good reads. I actually write better than I speak. So go read my materials, click, subscribe, share, follow, all those things that you know need to be done. And I'm out.
And until that moment comes,
when we, the Americans, are able to accept the fact that on that continent we are trying to forge a new identity for which we need each other, that I am not a ward of America. I am one of the people who built the country. Until this moment,
that we are brothers. It's not a question of Jews or Christians or Muslims. We're all in the same boat.
We need each other.
Love is a condition so powerful. It may be that which holds the stars in the firmament.
Until this moment.
Love.
Until this moment.
Love.
Until this moment.
I come to you today to say that we can build a newer and better nation. I say we can do so, that we must do so, and that we will do so.
You've tuned in to The Benjamin Dixon Show. Visit us online at www.thebenjamindixonshow.com.
So you get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.